Hi there, this is Dylan Milks for Saturday, January the 28th, 2011. Just wanted to comment, first of all, on gold and silver so far this year for 2011. Both gold went, in 2010, gold went through a 25% gain. Silver went up about 85% in 2010. And those gains really continued on right pretty much on through the last 10 years, where gold over the last 10 years has been up about 525%. Yes, you heard that right, 525%. Silver has been up about 600% in the last 10 years. Now, just wanted to kind of point out that so far in the month of January, both gold and silver have taken a bit of a beating. Gold's been down about 5% in January so far, and silver quite a bit more than that. Silver's been down about $3.50 in the month of January. So that's kind of some of my prompting me to kind of record this video here, just to kind of give some insights about it and kind of point some people, answer some questions about that. So one of the things that I found that I've been noticing about what's been going on is that typically these drops in silver and gold have basically been happening. What I've noticed is basically during the hours of the Western markets, particularly Western Europe and the United States. What I mean by that is, typically what I do is when I get up in the morning, first thing I do is I'll check the prices of gold and silver. And typically what I find is once you start getting around 10 o'clock at night, midnight, and then on through up until about 6 or 7 in the morning, typically you'll find that what I've been noticing in January is that typically both gold and silver have been reporting gains overnight. But then once the markets open in the Western world, usually those gains have been basically taken away, and in fact, they've by the end of the day, gold and silver have wound up lower. So that's an interesting point, because to me it tells me is that the eastern side of the world, or the other side of the world, typically Australia, Japan, India, China, those markets there seem to be pushing the price up. And then once the Western Europe and U.S. markets open, those markets seem to be wanting to be driving the price down. So that's an interesting thing to note about gold and silver, and what some of the things have been happening this year. Is that again, the Australia, China, Japan, India seem to be pushing it up, whereas the Western world seems to be pushing it down. So that's an interesting thing to note. The other thing I wanted to mention about was having some. One of the other things that I've heard a few analysts mention is that most of the selling is coming from the exchange traded funds. That would be the GLD or the SLV exchange traded funds. Now, I believe that now there's the place in town that I buy my silver from. Basically, I've confirmed with them is that really over the last month is that I just chatted with them recently, and that yes, they in fact have not at all seen a drop off in buying, but in fact they are still reporting incredibly strong sales of silver, and not even shortages of silver from their store. And also, if you look at some of the bigger online dealers like the American Precious Metals Exchange, that's apmx.com, you'll notice that some of their silver products as well, still to this day, are basically sold out of. They're sold out of them, and they're on back order. So this is quite interesting, because despite the strong sales of the physical, silver has still been dropping. So I find that's quite interesting, and to me that's pretty hard evidence that what's been going on is that basically the selling has been coming not from the physical, but really from the exchange traded funds. GLD and SLV have been, that's where the price drop has been happening. So that's another important thing to note, I think, about what's been going on in the last month with the silver market. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that typically, for the last 10 years with the rise of gold and silver, that rise has basically corresponded with a quite significant drop-off in the US dollar, meaning the purchasing power, or what they would call the US dollar index. And what that is that's basically a measurement of the strength of the US dollar against a basket of other world currencies. One of them happens to be the Canadian dollar. Also, what else is included in there would be the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan, the New Zealand dollar, the Aussie dollar, and a few other world currencies. The euro as well obviously would be in there too. So in the last 10 years, the US dollar has really dropped, lost a lot of value, lost a lot of purchasing power against the other world currencies. And of course, in Canada, us in Canada, we would be quite familiar with that as, as an explanation as to why, for the last many years, the Canadian dollar has been pretty much steadily over 90 against the US dollar. And in fact, even now, it's pretty much been par, and a couple times it's been above par. So in the last 10 years, that has been a major factor as to the rise of gold and silver, because the US dollar keeps losing value. However, during the month of January, it's been interesting to note that the US dollar has lost some quite significant value, probably something about 3 to 5% just in January alone. But yet gold and silver have still dropped. Gold again dropped about 5%. Silver has been about a little over 10%, more like, I believe it's been about 12 or so percent, or 10 to 12%. But what's been happening is that it's actually been the euro that has been gained about well over 5%, 5, 6, 7% so far just in January alone. And that's quite interesting to note, because it would appear then that the price of gold really seems to be tracking now, at least in the month of January, seems to be tracking the euro more so than the US dollar, because again, the US dollar has continued to drop in January, but the euro has gained, and now for some reason the gold seems to be following the euro rather than the US dollar. Now, is this significant? I don't know. I mean, we all know that at some point the US dollar will no longer be the reserve currency of the world. We know at some point in the near future that the rest of the world will no longer want to accept US dollars because of the fact that the world is flooded with them. So is this really the start of a shift towards away from the US dollar, and the fact that the markets are really putting more strength and more value in the euro as opposed to the US dollar? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But just thought I'd mention that, just that fact there, that gold seems to be going against the US dollar, at least in January it has been. And I think that's definitely something that to keep our eyes open for as the rest of the year unfolds. So thanks for watching, and that's all I've got to say right now, and we'll see you probably in a few days. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.